Right now, millions of men are walking away. No protests, no riots, no loud declarations of defiance, just silence. You can call it a crisis, you can call it a phase, but deep down, you can feel it. Something is breaking beneath the surface. Men are disconnecting. Not in anger, but in quiet exhaustion. They've been running a marathon that never ends, chasing a finish line that keeps disappearing every time they get close. They were told, be strong, be dependable, be the man everyone can count on. And for years, they did exactly that. They carried the weight of families, careers, expectations, all while pretending it didn't hurt. But lately, something has shifted. You can see it in their eyes, in the way they breathe, in the way they stop caring about things that once mattered. It's not depression, not exactly. It's depletion, the slow erosion of a man's spirit after years of trying to live up to an idea that was never his to begin with. There's a game that's been played for generations. It has very specific rules. Be tough, but not too tough. Be gentle, but never weak. Be the provider, the protector, the rock. Climb the ladder, get the house, build the empire. And above all, never complain, never falter, never show the cracks. For decades, this was how a man proved his worth, through utility. You were valuable if you produced, respected if you endured, admired if you sacrificed. Your existence was a transaction. Your labor, your sanity, your peace, in exchange for validation. But what happens when the transaction stops paying off? When the respect you were promised never comes? When the admiration turns into indifference and the ladder you're climbing leads nowhere? That's the quiet crisis unfolding right now. Men are realizing that the system they were told to trust doesn't love them back. It only loves what they can provide. The world has changed, but the expectations haven't. The old burdens remain, and new ones keep being added. Now you must be a top-tier earner and a hands-on father. A rock of strength and a fountain of vulnerability. You must open up emotionally, but not too much. Be sensitive, but still stoic. Be ambitious, but don't let ambition make anyone uncomfortable. It's an impossible equation. You're expected to be everything, everywhere, all the time, and do it without breaking. So men fake it. They smile, they perform. But underneath, they're running on fumes. And the truth is, they're not lazy or lost. They're tired. Tired of performing masculinity like it's a job description. Tired of pretending to be invincible while quietly falling apart. Every decade, fewer men are participating in the workforce. But this isn't rebellion in the traditional sense. It's surrender by exhaustion. Not walking away in rage, but simply stepping back, out of breath. They're not quitting life. They're quitting the performance of it. You won't see this on the evening news because it doesn't explode, it evaporates. It's not the kind of rebellion that burns cities. It's the kind that burns out souls. It's happening in the empty spaces, in quiet apartments, late-night drives, unreturned messages, and the hollow echo of "I'm fine." The exhaustion isn't just physical, it's existential. It's the fatigue of being told that your value is external, that your worth depends on how much you can give before you break. And when you finally break, the world doesn't stop. It just replaces you. Every man eventually reaches a moment, a private reckoning, when he asks himself a dangerous question. Why am I even running? It's the moment he realizes that the game he's been playing doesn't lead to peace, that he's been sacrificing his inner world for a prize that doesn't exist. And in that silence, in that small pause between breaths, something radical begins. He stops. He stops chasing, stops performing, stops trying to impress a world that never cared. And in that stillness, something both tragic and beautiful happens. He begins to see the truth, that he's been conditioned to equate exhaustion with virtue, that every sleepless night, every suppressed emotion, every fake smile was part of a silent contract he never agreed to sign. Men are ghosts in the machine now. They go to work, nod through meetings, come home, scroll through screens, and fade. They're not angry. They're empty. And that emptiness is spreading like wildfire through a generation that's been told to keep pushing no matter what. But here's the paradox. This exhaustion, this breaking point, it's not weakness. It's the first honest emotion many men have felt in years. It's the body and mind refusing to keep running a race that only leads to self-erasure. The rebellion doesn't start with noise, it starts with a whisper. A man saying, "Enough." It's not about overthrowing society. It's about walking away from an identity built on pain. A quiet decision to stop being useful and start being whole. That's the quiet rebellion. Not a march in the streets, not a manifesto. Just millions of men deciding silently to take their peace back, one breath at a time. It's happening right now, and the world still doesn't understand what it means. Because when men stop running, everything they've been holding up begins to shake. And that quiet collapse, is the sound of an awakening. How did we get here? How did the game become so brutally one-sided that men, millions of them, are choosing to quietly walk off the field? The answer isn't hidden in some conspiracy or secret agenda. It's right there, woven into the very fabric of how society was built. Because the system isn't broken. It's working exactly as designed. From the moment a boy is born, the conditioning begins. He's not told, "You are valuable because you exist." He's told you will be valuable when you prove it, when you achieve, when you provide, when you endure. Every story he consumes, from hero movies to history lessons, teaches him that his worth is earned through sacrifice, that his body, his time, and his sanity are currencies to be spent in the service of something bigger than himself. He's the soldier, the worker, the protector, the one who stays behind when everyone else runs. It sounds noble, until you realize what it costs. They call it the disposable man. A man whose value is directly tied to how much he can give, produce, or endure before breaking. A man expected to risk his life, his health, and his spirit without ever asking, "What do I get in return?" Look at the statistics. 90% of workplace deaths are men. The most dangerous, backbreaking jobs are overwhelmingly male. Men dig the mines, climb the towers, lay the concrete, fight the fires. And when one of them collapses under the weight, the system doesn't mourn him. It replaces him, quietly, efficiently. This isn't just about physical danger. It's about emotional disposability too. The system doesn't want men to feel. It wants them to function, to show up, shut up, and produce. And for generations, men did just that. They worked themselves into early graves, thinking they were doing the right thing. But here's the catch. The game changed, and no one told them. The rules that once defined masculinity, hard work, loyalty, endurance, no longer guarantee respect, love, or security. The economy shifted, social expectations evolved, but the male role remained frozen in time. He's still expected to provide like it's 1950, but now he must also be emotionally fluent, spiritually grounded, and socially progressive, all at once. He's told to open up, but when he does, he's called weak. He's told to communicate, but when he expresses pain, he's ignored. He's told to be vulnerable, but when he finally breaks, the world turns away. So he stops talking, not out of pride, but out of survival. He learns that silence is safer than honesty, that being unseen hurts less than being misunderstood. This is how the system breaks you, not with violence, but with contradictions. It teaches you to measure your worth by impossible standards. It forces you to chase approval that never arrives. And when you inevitably fail, it blames you for not being strong enough. This is the psychological blackmail of modern masculinity. Do more, give more, feel less, or you're not a real man. But here's what most people don't see. This exhaustion, this quiet despair, it's not weakness. It is evidence that men are still trying to live up to expectations that were never designed for human beings. They were designed for machines. Men are expected to work endlessly, compete constantly, and never show the cost of it. But when the burnout hits, when the depression starts creeping in, the system gaslights them. It tells them to man up, to fix it themselves, to get back in line and keep moving. That's why men are dying quietly, not in protest, but in resignation. 4 times more likely to take their own lives than women, not because they weaker, but because they've been taught that asking for help is shameful. And behind that silence is a brutal truth. Men aren't leaving because they hate the world. They're leaving because they cannot survive the version of it that demands their soul as payment. Loneliness has become their silent epidemic. More men today say they have no close friends than ever before in recorded history. Think about that. A world full of men surrounded by people, yet utterly alone. They sit in rooms full of noise and still feel like ghosts. It's not that men don't crave connection. They do, deeply. But when every relationship feels like another test, another performance, another demand to be enough, eventually, they stop showing up. And when they stop, society calls it apathy. But it's not apathy. It's grief. It's mourning a world that never learned how to love men without conditions. It is grieving for the boy who once wanted to be a hero, but grew up to realize that heroes die lonely deaths. The quiet rebellion begins here, in the realization that the game was never about your happiness. It was about your usefulness. And when you finally stop being useful, the world forgets your name. But there's power in that realization. Because once you see the game for what it is, you can finally stop playing it. You can stop performing. Stop begging for approval. You can start asking a different question. Not how do I win, but why am I even playing? And that's where the transformation begins. Not in anger, not in destruction, but in quiet awareness. The awareness that your peace, your sanity, your spirit, these are not luxuries. They are your birthright. The man who understands this has already begun to rebel, not with rage, but with withdrawal, not with noise, but with stillness. The quiet rebellion doesn't need a movement or a manifesto. It begins the moment a man whispers to himself, "I'm done being broken for a world that never cared if I healed." That's when everything starts to change. So how do you fight a system that's everywhere? A system that doesn't need chains or prisons because it keeps you trapped inside your own sense of duty? You don't fight it the way they expect you to. You don't scream, you don't burn, you don't beg. You withdraw. The quiet rebellion is not about destruction. It's about disengagement. It's not a war against the world. It's a declaration of ownership over your time, your energy, your peace. The quiet rebellion begins when a man looks around and says, "I refuse to keep feeding a machine that feeds on me." It's not loud, but it's powerful, because the system can only survive if you keep playing. And the moment you stop, even for a breath, it begins to lose its grip. Pillar 1. Redefine what it means to win. The first act of rebellion is redefinition, because the system controls you through its definition of success. It tells you that to be a man is to accumulate money, titles, women, recognition. That victory is having more, owning more, being seen more. But every time you chase it, the finish line moves farther away. You're not running towards something, you're running for someone. For their approval, their validation, their applause. The quiet rebel sees through that illusion. He understands that real victory isn't found in the applause of the crowd. It's found in silence, in the ability to sit in a quiet room and feel peace instead of panic, in the freedom of no longer needing to perform. To win, you have to lose. The illusion, the mask, the obsession with more. The true rebellion is wanting less. That's why some men are leaving 6-figure jobs to move somewhere slower. They're trading status for sanity. It's not failure, it's freedom. It's not quitting, it's reclaiming. They're realizing that enough is the most radical word in the modern world. Enough noise, enough competition, enough pretending. Because when you stop chasing more, you finally have space to discover what actually matters. Pillar 2. Reclaim solitude. We've been taught to fear silence, to mistake solitude for loneliness. But solitude is not isolation. It's alignment. Loneliness is the ache of being unseen. Solitude is the peace of finally seeing yourself. The quiet rebel doesn't run from being alone. He seeks it out. He builds it into his life deliberately. A sacred space free from performance and noise. An apartment that doesn't echo with emptiness, but hums with calm. A walk through the woods where no one is watching and no one needs him to be anything. In solitude, he learns the difference between who he is and who he was told to be. He remembers what he loved before the world told him what he should want. The guitar collecting dust in the corner, the book he never finished, the dreams he buried because they didn't fit the job description. Solitude becomes his forge, the place where his true self is reforged, quietly and without applause. He learns that peace isn't found in escaping others but in finally coming home to himself. It's not a retreat, it's a return, and in that quiet, he rediscovers something dangerous: self-possession. The realization that his time and attention are sacred, that his inner world doesn't belong to algorithms, corporations, or anyone else's expectations. Pillar 3. Authenticity over performance. Every man wears masks. Some are carved by culture, others by fear. The "I'm fine" mask, the "always strong" mask, the "everything's under control" mask. They're heavy. And the longer you wear them, the harder it becomes to breathe. The quiet rebellion begins when you take that mask off, first in private, then in small, brave moments of truth. It's not about announcing your vulnerability online or turning your pain into a brand. It's about finally telling yourself the truth. I'm tired. I'm lost. I don't know who I am without this performance. And when you do that, when you strip away the act, something profound happens. You stop attracting people who love your role and start finding people who love your reality. Your circle gets smaller, but it becomes sacred. No more shallow approval, no more transactional friendships. Just real connections built on truth instead of performance. You realize that authenticity isn't about being liked, it's about being whole. And for the first time, you understand that your value doesn't come from how much you can endure, but from how honestly you can live. Real stories of quiet rebels. There's the corporate executive who walked away from a high-rise corner office, moved to a small town and opened a woodworking shop. He makes a tenth of what he used to, but every morning his heart is calm. His hands smell like cedar, not anxiety. He doesn't live for weekends anymore. His whole life has become one long exhale. There's the young man who saw the treadmill ahead, debt, stress, competition, and said no. He works a simple job, lives modestly, and spends his free time writing music. Society calls him unambitious, but he's the freest person he knows. And the divorced father who stopped trying to win approval from people who never valued him. He focuses on his kids, his peace, his presence. He stopped chasing the illusion of success and found something deeper: contentment. These men didn't give up on life, they gave up on living someone else's version of it. The quiet rebellion isn't a protest movement, it's a spiritual one. It's the quietest revolution in human history. Men reclaiming the one thing society can't take from them, their inner world. No slogans, no banners, no noise. Just the silent, steady rhythm of men choosing themselves for the first time. And the most powerful part? Once a man rediscovers peace, he becomes ungovernable. Because you can't manipulate a man who no longer needs what you're selling. You can't control a man who's content. That's the secret the system fears most. Peaceful men, not compliant, not broken, not angry, but calm, aware, and free. That's the true rebellion. The man who walks away not in rage but in silence. Not to destroy the world, but to rebuild his own. And once he does, he'll never go back. So what does life look like on the other side? What happens after a man finally walks away from the game? At first it's disorienting. The silence feels heavy. The noise of the old life still echoes in his mind. The deadlines, the expectations, the endless striving. He spent so long running that stopping feels unnatural, even frightening. He's left the race, but the rhythm of it still beats in his chest. But then, slowly it begins to fade. The adrenaline quiets, the anxiety softens, and in its place something new emerges. Stillness. At first it feels like emptiness, Because for years he's measured himself by activity, by effort, by motion. Doing nothing feels wrong. Rest feels like failure. But that's only because he's forgotten what peace feels like. Peace isn't loud. Peace doesn't need witnesses. It doesn't post, doesn't perform, doesn't compete. Peace simply is. And for the first time in his life, he begins to taste it. Waking up without dread. Going a full day without proving anything to anyone. Doing something when or nothing, purely because he chooses to. The man who walks away from the game discovers a kind of freedom that can't be explained to those still inside it. They'll call him lazy, unmotivated, disconnected. They'll say he's wasting his potential, but that's only because they're still measuring worth by the same old metrics: productivity, wealth, validation. They don't realize he's playing a different game now, one with no finish line, no scoreboard, no audience. He's learning to live for real, to find beauty in the ordinary, to measure success in moments of stillness, in laughter that isn't forced, in sleep that comes easy. He no longer chases legacy. He seeks peace. He starts to see how distorted the old world really was, how it rewarded suffering and punished stillness, how it called burnout dedication and emotional numbness strength. He begins to notice how many people around him are still trapped, performing lives they secretly despise. He doesn't judge them. He recognizes himself in them, because he once wore the same mask. But he also knows something now that they don't. That peace isn't the absence of struggle. It's the refusal to suffer unnecessarily. That happiness isn't found in conquering the world, but in mastering your own inner space. So he simplifies. He strips life down to what's essential, not in a minimalist aesthetic, but in a spiritual sense. He chooses people who bring warmth, not weight. Work that brings meaning, not misery, and moments that feel real, not rehearsed. He doesn't stop working, he just stops performing. He doesn't stop loving, he just stops chasing. He doesn't stop caring, he just stops carrying what was never his. He begins to understand something profound, that life isn't meant to be conquered, it's meant to be lived. And peace isn't found by running faster. It's found by standing still long enough to see who you truly are beneath all the noise. And when you meet this man, the one who has stopped running, you can feel it immediately. There's a calm in his voice that can't be faked, an ease in his eyes that only comes from surviving himself. He's not looking to prove, not looking to win. He's simply here. He doesn't need validation because he's learned how to self-validate. He doesn't need recognition because his life has become his quiet manifesto. He's found meaning not in grand gestures, but in presence, in being fully alive in the small, ordinary moments the old world taught him to overlook. He drinks his coffee slowly. He walks instead of hurrying. He listens, really listens when someone speaks. And when he's alone, he isn't lonely. He's free. Some will look at him and see withdrawal, but it's not withdrawal, it's sovereignty. He's reclaimed his life, one silent decision at a time. He no longer serves a world that measures men by their exhaustion. He serves something deeper now, his own soul, and in doing so he becomes something the world no longer knows how to handle. A man who cannot be bought, shamed, or manipulated. A man who smiles not because life is easy, but because he's finally at peace with its difficulty. A man who understands that to walk away isn't defeat, it's transcendence. He doesn't need a kingdom. He doesn't need applause. He doesn't even need to be understood. He just needs truth. And that's exactly what he's found. Because this quiet rebellion, this mass exodus from performance, isn't a collapse. It's an awakening. The world sees emptiness, but what it's witnessing is rebirth. Men choosing themselves, their sanity, their peace over illusion. And once that begins, there's no turning back. For the first time in generations, men are realizing that they don't need permission to exist. They don't need to earn their right to breathe. They were born worthy before the system told them otherwise. And that's the deepest revolution of all, to live as though your worth was never conditional. So if you're a man who's tired, not just physically, but spiritually, know this: you're not broken. You're awakening, and your exhaustion isn't weakness, It's the first sign that your soul is rejecting the life that was never truly yours. There's life beyond the grind, beyond performance, beyond the noise. A life measured not by what you produce, but by how deeply you feel, how honestly you live, and how peacefully you sleep at night. This is not the end of the story. It's the beginning of a new one written in quiet, deliberate freedom. A story of men who no longer need to shout to prove they exist. Men who have found power in peace. Because in a world built on noise, the quiet man is the loudest of all.